Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys a complete breakdown on the brand new brawler Sam, giving you guys the best tips on how to win certain matchups and also the biggest counter to this brawler. So first off, I'm going to give you guys the best build for Sam. So for Sam, both gadgets are pretty interesting. So one of them will pull nearby enemies whenever you throw out your super. So kind of like a Jackie super, how it pulls them closer. So that's how that gadget works whenever you throw out his super, obviously. And then the other one, whenever you throw out your super, upon impact it will push the enemies away. So in certain modes, both of them can honestly be pretty good. So far, I think magnetic field is the better gadget, just because it allows you to bring them closer towards you, so then you can take them down a little bit easier, and that's what you probably want as a tank because you will lack a lot of range. And then for me, remote recharge has to be the better super or better start power, just because it allows you to recharge your super a lot faster, and if you for some reason throw your super really far away, it's going to be really hard to then collect it again. So of course you want like something that can automatically charge your super a little bit easier. The other one is pretty decent. It recovers 30% of your health if of course you've got your super and it's really far away, then you can recall it and gain 30% extra health, which is somewhat decent. But for me, remote recharge, magnetic field have to be the better gadget and start power. And then going on to his gears then, so I think the health gear is probably going to be the better one. He's got a lot of HP, so the health gear going to allow him to recover. And then damage, he doesn't really do a lot of damage, so the damage gear is going to come in clutch. Okay, so firstly we're going to be going on to the brawlers, which I believe he has a really strong matchup against. So first one's going to be Spike. So Spike is super squishy. Of course, Spike can deal with tanks somewhat okay just because of his high DPS, but overall Spike is really squishy. And with Sam, he gets his super straight away from spawn, and it deals like 2.1k damage, and it also gets a damage boost with a damage gear as well. So you can imagine a brawler like Spike, and especially when he uses his life plan gadget, it can just pierce through it, and you can just take down Spike so quickly because he's basically like half HP. If you hit your super, you get a little speed boost as well, so allow you to finish off the kill much quicker. So with Sam, you're going to be looking to go towards the lower HP brawlers, just because he doesn't have a lot of high light DPS. He's not really insane up close without his super, so making sure that you're taking down those squishy brawlers. Okay, so another good matchup for Sam has to be Mr. P. So Mr. P of course struggles against tanks, but as you guys know already, the super pierces through multiple things. So if Mr. P has any porters, literally his super can basically take down a porter every single time on its own, so it's really good. And then the additional speeds allowing you to close the gap on Mr. P a lot easier. Also, one thing I didn't notice, one thing I didn't mention about his main attack. So his main attack is really bad if you don't have your super. It only deals 600 damage per punch, and you only do 2 punches per piece of ammo, which isn't really a lot. You do get an increase in reload speed, like you reload obviously a lot shorter, but it just doesn't do a lot of damage. Like you don't really have any mechanic that can like push back the enemies as well. So for me, it feels a little bit underwhelming, but Mr. P is always going to struggle against tanks. I guess the next up for the brawlers that Sam can have a good matchup against, it has to be Byron. So Byron is incredibly low in the HP department, doesn't have any type of like knockback feature. So with Sam, when he gets his super, he can easily close the gap between him and Byron and take him down quite quickly. So with Sam, you want to be using him also on maps that are really like short range, that have a lot of walls. So your typical generic maps that tanks are good on, because he hasn't really got any assassin features as well, like Buzz for example, where he can close the gap on those long range maps. You know, Sam doesn't really have that, so you do need to be of course throwing your super close to walls as well, and keeping that super really close because he really heavily depends on it. Okay, so next up for the good matchups for Sam, we have Piper. So honestly, I didn't really feel like Piper was completely the best matchup. I really struggled to find brawlers that Sam completely dominated against, but I think just literally because Piper, again, another brawler that struggles against tanks, it's pretty easy when I got up close, especially with my super, to get it down to half HP and then speed boost again. It's just so hard for any type of brawler that really struggles against tanks for them to really do anything. But because he lacks so much range, like Piper can keep a distance, especially on the longer range maps. Like again, he's not a brawler like Fang, like Mortis, like Buzz for example, that can easily close down the gap. So I don't think Sam is still really the best. Okay, and finally for the decent matchups for Sam, we have Penny. So the main reason why I put Sam in the decent matchups is literally because of Penny's gadget. Like Penny's gadget is the main reason why she can counter tanks, but with Sam's super that it gets quite frequently, you will be able to destroy her gadget with literally a super, and it will also just pierce through that gadget and go straight onto Penny, and you should be able to take her down a lot easier. But as I said, there's probably a little bit easier matchups in the terms like he should be good against throwers and just in general, really squishy brawlers, but I thought this could be a decent pick, especially against such a meta pick like Penny. Okay, so now moving on to the brawlers which counter Sam pretty hard. The first one has to be Gale. So Gale is going to be by far the best counter for the new brawler Sam, mainly because Gale just so strong against every single tank, but also as well because Sam heavily depends on that super. You can literally put a gadget down on Sam's super and he won't be able to get it back, so that's going to be a pretty toxic trait when it comes down to Gale. But overall, like, the stuns are just too much for Sam to deal with. He can't really close the gap on Gale that quickly, and by the time he's probably close to Gale, he's going to have another super, he's going to have another gadget available. So yeah, Gale just completely hard counters Sam. Okay, so next up for the hard counters for Sam, of course we have Surge. Surge is an absolute beast in 1v1 interactions, but just overall I feel like Surge is going to be a great counter because of course with your super you can just jump over Sam's super, so you won't be taking that damage, and then of course you can just jump on top of Sam as well. You'll be able to take him down pretty easily. Doesn't have the most DPS, so Surge shouldn't really be too scared about Sam closing the gap, but of course Surge is still a little bit squishy, still got to watch out in case he does hit that super. But overall Surge is just so strong against tanks and definitely a hard counter. Okay, so next up, your generic tank counter, we have Griff. So Griff I feel like it's going to be even better in this meta, and if Sam is somewhat strong, then Griff is definitely going to be one of those brawlers that you can always rely on, just because you're probably going to see a lot of Poco in this meta, a lot of Max. So Griff with his super, the high DPS, is such a good option, and just against Sam in general, like if Sam tries to come close, Griff's just going to absolutely melt him with his super. And also Sam, more than most brawlers, more than most tanks, I feel like actually relies on walls more than you think. So Griff opening up walls as much as possible is going to allow him to counter Sam even harder. Okay, so next up on the counter list we have Nita. So Nita is going to be an incredibly strong brawler within the next meta, and I feel like Sam is going to struggle so hard against Nita's bear, especially with this shield and also the star power that Nita has that heals up the bear. It's going to be really hard for him to deal with it because he just can't deal much damage in a quick amount of time. It's really going to allow Nita to cycle her bear against him, and yeah, I just think it's basically GG as soon as Nita gets bear against him. I know he has the ability to pierce through her bear, but she's going to recharge that so quick, right? And also his super can pierce through it, but that's really going to do nothing when you think about it. So yeah, Nita has to be a hard counter. Okay guys, so jumping into the final hard counter, of course we have Pam. So Pam is going to be insane against Sam in my opinion because of course she's so strong with that gadget, but also her super is going to be pretty hard for Sam to deal with any type of spawnable or turret because it doesn't really deal a lot of damage. So I feel like her turret as well can be a decent counter, but overall Pam's going to be a beast because again he hasn't got the DPS to deal with those higher HP brawlers. So I feel like Pam is going to absolutely dominate him in a 1v1. Alright guys, going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one. So for me, Sam, I feel like it's going to be pretty underwhelming within the meta, or even underrated, because you got to compare Sam for me to a brawler like Fang. To begin with, I thought Fang wasn't going to be the strongest, but then as people learned how to use him, Fang was really OP. Maybe this is the same with Sam because it's got a completely new mechanic in the game where you start off with your super, but I just think he's too super reliant and you don't actually charge it back pretty quick. Like on his own in 1v1 interactions without his super, he's going to get destroyed every single time. But with our super available on those maps where you can easily throw super against the wall, I feel like he could have the ability to just wipe people out really quickly. So maybe he could be pretty strong. For me, I'll put him somewhere in the middle of the pack for now as we get to learn his mechanics overall. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Let me know what you think of Sam in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.